So I guess he didn't want to be fired by Donald Trump. So Christopher Wray, who was initially put in place by Donald Trump in those, again, that era where, again, President Trump was a new president. You're trying to find good fits that can quickly be confirmed and trying to kind of counter Comey with someone with similar credentials to Comey. And unfortunately, what happened there was Chris Wray, now I wouldn't say he became another Comey to some extent, but he did order and approve the raid on the former president's and now president-elect's home. So at that point, you think about judgment. And it's not just because, hey, he did this to President Trump. He also did this to people who were pro-life activists and was showing up at their doors with guns. And remember, they did this to radical traditional Catholics. That was all done by the FBI. Christopher Wray is the lead. So it's a good move. Obviously, I think it opens the door too, where you look at the difference between a Kash Patel and when you go back to Christopher Wray, who honestly, in those congressional hearings, Logan, to me, every time I would see Christopher Wray, I was kind of like, that's not instilling much confidence in the FBI.
I think even though, like you said, he wasn't necessarily Comey, but he became a pretty toxic figure, became a name that you kind of, our audience would react to in a negative way.
By that raid.
Yeah.
But in some ways less because it didn't lead to basically an attempt to remove Trump from office.
Yeah, it more became an annoyance. Someone, when you heard the name, you knew that there was something that felt political was going to happen.
They were trying to bar him from actually being able to run.
Yeah.
And that was their big move there, is that convicted felon, blah, blah. Yeah.
But here's what you have. You have Chris Wray saying, hey, before the end of the term, I am going to get out of here. And, of course, there's a lot of reasons that he'd want to do that.
Yes. One is there's a threat of a potential constitutional showdown because the FBI director is supposed to be independent. You're not supposed to be able to fire them. I think the current Supreme Court would say anybody in the executive branch who is appointed by a president can be fired by a president. Doesn't matter which president appointed them. They're not part of the bureaucracy. You don't have to show any wrongdoing at all. You could just say, this doesn't work. And there's so many conflicts now. How on earth, if you're Christopher Wray, could you really be sitting across with President Trump, knowing the fact that you've been trying to go after him, allowing others to go after him as well, to the point where you raided his home, faked the photos of where documents were.
This is President Trump with Kristen Welker on NBC News last week, going over what would happen to Christopher Wray. Does he get fired? Does he not?
Are you going to fire the current FBI Director Christopher Wray, who you appointed?
Well, I can't say I'm thrilled with him. He invaded my home. I'm suing the country over it. He invaded Mar-a-Lago. I'm very unhappy with the things he's done. And crime is at an all-time high. Migrants are pouring into the country that are from prisons and from mental institutions, as we've discussed. I can't say I'm thrilled. I don't want to be Joe Biden and give you an answer and then do the exact opposite.
We're going to talk about
So
that,
I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to say is I certainly cannot be happy with him. You take a look at what's happened. I have a lot of respect for the FBI, but the FBI's respect has gone way down over the last number of years.
Don't you have to fire him in order to make room for Kash Patel if he is, in fact, confirmed?
Well, I mean, it would sort of seem pretty obvious that if Kash gets in, he's going to be taking somebody's place, right? And somebody is the man that you're talking about.
And listen, I think Christopher Wray did the right thing here. He has not been someone who has been a very successful FBI director. He's gotten way too political, like the president said, raiding his home, those documents being scattered, sending in agents to spy on churches with no basis. It wasn't like they were looking for an individual who might be trying to utilize. It was just, hey, we should look into these Catholic churches because that's where we see so much domestic terrorism, come from. Except I don't see any.
A commentator on MSNBC yesterday that was talking about the nomination of Kash Patel, reacting to Chris Wray announcing that he'd be leaving. And he said, and this is a former state senator of Florida, and he said something to the effect that Kash Patel used to be on Team Normal, but then he got investigated and became radicalized. And I think when you hear what Empower is talking about here and what the Office of the Inspector General has confirmed through their investigation, when you hear people say that, they were investigated and radicalized, it rings hollow to me because it doesn't seem radical to want the Department of Justice to want to follow the law, not spy on congressional staffers doing their constitutional mandate of oversight. But here we are. The mainstream is going to say it's radical, but I think it also shows the importance of getting these reforms through in the next Congress and under the next administration while we have this opportunity to ensure this doesn't happen again.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what's unfortunate about this whole radicalized narrative is this impacts Republicans and Democrats, right? So this is not a partisan issue. To be clear, this was, people can spin this however they want. This was the beginning of the Trump administration. That's how a lot of people reported it. On the other hand, it was career folks in the Justice Department, the FBI, that are seeking these out. They sought out records from both Democrat and Republican members of Congress. But I think everybody has to take a step back and understand the Constitution was established before there was a Republican Party, before there was a Democrat Party. And the separation of powers in there, and the checks and balances are really important. They're there for a reason. And so to the extent that we, just allow people to run those over because we think, well, it's probably, if I'm a Republican, it's fine, it's just Republicans. If I'm a Democrat, it's fine, it's just the Democrats. Really has led to part of the erosion of our protections in our government and our separation of power system. So there absolutely need to be reforms. DOJ cannot have that kind of access with no checks on them. And you're right. This is the key time to do it, to make those changes.
That clip from MSNBC about Kash Patel and how he was, quote unquote, radicalized. Let's take a listen to this. This from MSNBC just today.
I was disappointed, Jonathan, that Wray capitulated. That's what he did. He ran from the building. He's still fighting the last war. He's still in a world of norms. This is the Trump era. It's different. He should have stayed and fought, forced Trump to fire him. His replacement is likely to be Kash Patel. I do think he'll be confirmed by the Senate. And Kash Patel is someone actually I know. He was a public defender in Miami, so he was in my neck of the woods. He was actually on Team Normal for a while, even when he worked for Congressman Devin Nunes. Kash Patel was a very likable guy. He was not part of the ultra MAGA, but what happened was he changed during the Russia investigation. He was investigated himself. It took a lot of time, money out of his own pockets, and some would say it radicalized him. And now it's a different Kash Patel.
Wouldn't you be pretty upset when you realized that the entire Russia narrative was fake? It was all made up? And then they use a term, Logan, that makes him sound like a terrorist.
Yeah,
radicalized.
Yeah. How often do you hear that like for anything other than that?
The traditional Catholics and all, we have to go to them. So we have to make everybody out to be this kind of on the line domestic terrorist. If you happen to be pro-life, if you happen to be a Christian who shares their faith with others in any kind of public way, or if you have political positions that because of a president that you supported, who, by the way, you work in the world of Republican politics and executive branch. Kash Patel's got a long record there, that you're being spied on. And what I always put it, and we know this, is that if they will do it to Kash Patel and Donald Trump, we know they will do it to us. They already have. They tried to send spies and were successful in one case into churches. Think about that.